Just for contrast, I want to show you how, while Tunak Tunak Tun of Daler Mehendi are being played on loudspeakers in an effort to demoralize Indian forces in Pangong, I want to show you some pictures from exactly 2 years ago. These are pictures of Indian troops with Chinese troops during a joint exercise called Hand in Hand, making them do the Bhangra. Just look at these pictures. So I only showed you those pictures because I'm wondering whether the idea for Punjabi music came during that exercise, and also to give you a sense of contrast over a partnership between the two armies where they were actually in a joint exercise together just 2 years ago. It's absolutely almost unimaginable that something like that could have happened given the events over the last 4 months during this current aggression by China that has led to this huge standoff. Joining me live now, Lieutenant General Satish Dua, former Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff. He's also been Corps Commander in Srinagar. He's one of India's most respected and articulate defence veterans. Also with us is Colonel S. Diniz, served until not very long ago as Commanding Officer of an infantry battalion deployed in the Pangong area. So this is basically his ilaka we are talking about. And Dr. Sriram Sundar Cholia, he's a world affairs analyst and professor and dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with me. General Dua, I want to start with you because you've already observed on this aspect. Many people who've, heard about these loudspeakers for the first time were a little flummoxed, perplexed, what is going on. You've said this is laughable and that the Chinese are stuck in the past with this loudspeaker business. I want to talk about that specifically for a moment, General Dua. Your views. Why the loudspeakers?
Shiv, in World War II, leaflets used to be dropped as a propaganda measure. Slowly came the loudspeakers and what have you. And then we saw, you yourself reported now, that in '62 also they used loudspeakers, yes, and thereafter too. World has moved on, and that's why you referred to my tweet. And I thought that if this is an attempt to lower our morale, because, I beg your pardon, on one side we've heard loudspeakers with the music that you just put out.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you also brought out that they have used such statements to what they feel will lower the morale of Indian soldiers by saying your leaders have left you here and you got a winter to face. I use the word laughable because, I mean, in today's world,
yes,
I would agree if someone said they want to control the narrative, there will be cyber warfare, which also is happening, by the way,
yes,
and controlling the narrative on the social media or trying to influence the narrative on social media would be today's enablers. But to use Bhangra, whether or Bhangra is just always showcases a peppy culture, yeah, of one of the many martial races of a country. But to expect that Indian soldiers' morale will be lowered by these tools or enablers of yesteryears, and that's where I feel they are stuck in a real past life.
Okay, they're stuck in a past life. It's laughable, absolutely, and we're going to talk about that also in a moment. Colonel Dini, you've been there. I mean, you have actually commanded a battalion in the exact location where, earlier this month or late last month, these loudspeakers were used to blare Punjabi music, and elsewhere there was like propaganda on loudspeakers. Did you ever experience this kind of thing? And your views on this usage of loudspeakers and propaganda and songs to try and demoralize Indian forces?
No, Shiv. Actually, during my tenure, we never had this kind of loudspeakers being used. It was never used, although there were a lot of issues then also with this differing perceptions and all those scuffle and all those things used to take place. But such kind of usage of loudspeakers was not seen during our times. My own view is that, it is definitely a mind game. There is no doubt. And like General Dua rightly said, that they're stuck in the past, and it is they're still trying to do those things which they did before in the era of 1962 and such like things. But more than that, it is also, a means for them to divert our attention. There is no doubt. The fact that we are speaking today on this subject itself shows that, at that particular point where they're using this, I'm sure they want to divert the attention also. There's no doubt in that.
Yeah.
And more importantly, they want to plant some amount of little bit of doubt in the minds of people there to say that, we know your language, we can speak your language in the language you understand, such like things are which they're trying very hard. But like General rightly said, in this era, it is not going to succeed. My only last submission on this is that it also shows their desperation, Shiv. They've been trying all means, coming with all kind of weapons and right up till firing, and all those things have happened. And this particular thing also shows their desperation of us holding those heights which we had taken in a proactive operation. So actually, it is a sign of desperation also that they have not thought of what effect their propaganda will come through. We have seen, like General Doha mentioned, that IW or information warfare is one of the strengths of PLA which we recognize all through. But in this crisis which we are seeing for the last 3-4 months, whatever is being generated from China, it's actually a real surprise that the quality which comes in, whether it is Global Times and whether now it is this use of loudspeakers. Because that's a big surprise actually.
Because like General Dua also said that China does employ modern cutting-edge information warfare and mind game tactics, psychological operations. So which is why the use of these loudspeakers is a little surprising. It's a little jarring. It appears to be stuck in the past. Dr. Cholia, how would you read this particular thing? And the reason I'm talking just about the loudspeakers, even though we have a report coming up on the other mind games they've been playing, is because it's a curious occurrence. It hasn't happened all the time. It usually only happens during such such standoffs. It happened in 62, it happened in 67, it happened in 87 in Sundarongchu as well. How do you read the Chinese being apparently stuck in the past and actually believing that this could have some kind of demoralizing effect on Indian troops?
Yeah, Shiv, it's a curious regime. I mean, think about it. How many communist dictatorships are there on earth today? Out of 193 members of the United Nations.
Yeah.
So my first point is, ideologically, we have to understand the Chinese, especially under Xi Jinping. There is a kind of a re-Maoification of the entire Chinese society, politics, including the military. Many purchases have been done. Many commanders have been replaced, including Western Theater Command. So the Marxist-Leninist ideology, Shiv, always believes that the opponent we should expand the contradictions in the enemy.
Yeah.
That is the mindset. This is a theory. And what they look for is, through these, this is a very slapstick manner in which they're doing this, but this is all part of that broader notion that somehow India, it's a democracy. There are a lot of differing opinions, viewpoints. We should expand these contradictions and make them so divided and confused that they will not have a long-term strategy to push back against China. So the loudspeakers, I see, so that's one. The other, of course, is their perception of India. The Chinese have a very ethnocentric view. They think that they are a very united people, the Han majority. India, they think, is religion, caste. They're all divided along different identity lines, and we can play on those.
Yeah.
And now you see the Global Times propaganda also, Shiv. They are saying in India there are both hawks who want to prolong and to provoke China, but they're also very reasonable people, they say, who understand China's power and might and don't want to take it on and are willing to compromise.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to play this divide between hyper-nationalists and, reasonable or moderate people in India. So this is the kind of, worldview that the Chinese have. What they did not reckon for, Shiv, is that this country is fully united and nationalistic.
Undoubtedly.
That is the biggest
Yes.
error Xi Jinping made, because he thought that this is the time of Corona, this is the time when, CAA agitation was going on, people were raising questions at the Prime Minister. They thought this was a divided house.
That has already been established as a miscalculation.
And they're unable to fathom it.
Absolutely.
That's why it has become surreal and absurd.
I want to, the loudspeaker is just, is only one element. Nobody is saying that this is the be-all and end-all of the mind game machine by China. Before I go back to you, gentlemen, I want to play out some of the other aspects. General Dua very rightly said that the loudspeaker is only one. They've been doing so many other things, whether it is Global Times, whether it is cyber warfare, information warfare, Twitter armies, trying to discredit Indian stories. All of that is happening now. China has pumped up the propaganda at this time. But we at India Today also believe in busting some fake propaganda claims. We just handpicked 5 of the claims that have been made by Chinese mouthpieces in the last week, and we bust them one by one. Take a look.
If Indian troops don't withdraw from the southern bank of Pangong So Lake, the PLA will confront them all winter long. Indian troops' logistics are poor. Many Indian soldiers will die of freezing temperature or COVID-19. With these drones, the PLA's frontline soldiers can enjoy hot meals once winter reaches the plateau. Some sympathize with the nearby Indian soldiers who can only eat cold canned food and have to endure the severe cold and potential spread of COVID-19. 2 tweets that give you a flavor of Chinese propaganda, courtesy Xi Jinping's propaganda-in-chief and editor of the virulent state-owned media outlet Global Times. The mind games designed to taunt the Indian army and suggest that Indian soldiers aren't built for the long haul at high altitudes. Does India need to engage with such claims, or do the facts about Indian soldiers speak for themselves? Not that Indian citizens need reassurance about the Indian Army's capabilities, but we thought it's a good idea to show why the Chinese government's claims, through its attack dog of choice, Global Times, are laughably short of facts. For starters, the Indian Army is the only army that deploys at super high altitudes like Siachen and elsewhere all through the year. With special clothing and supplies, these soldiers and officers are mountain warriors in the truest sense. They not only survive, but are fighting fit at altitudes where most cannot hope to survive. And that's because the Indian Army is the only true mountain warfare army in the world. One that spends its time training to hold the most hostile heights and battlefields, from eastern Ladakh to the Siachen Glacier. Chinese state-sponsored taunts that Indian soldiers are ineffective at super high altitudes also fall flat. While India does not feel the need to flaunt exercise images like China, these rare videos of Indian Army snow warriors and special forces with their weapon and equipment at super high altitudes sends out an unmistakable message about the ability to perform at those heights. On the back of China's taunts about how Indian soldiers wouldn't survive the harsh winters, this undated video cropped up on social media showing Indian Army troops during an hour of rest and recreation playing kabaddi, a strenuous cardio-filled game at over 14,000 feet. The video has gone viral and shows how conditioned and acclimatized Indian troops are to high altitudes, not just to survive and stand guard, but even play sports that require a great deal of energy. And finally, right around the time the Chinese were fuming over the Indian Army's preemptive actions in South Pangong and formulating their virulent mind games on Indian soldiers, this is what was happening at the world's highest helipads on the Siachen Glacier. These exclusive images show India's new indigenous light utility helicopter completing super high altitude trials with army pilots at the Amar and Sonam posts, 2 of the most forbiddingly high altitude posts at over 21,000 feet. By now, India is well versed with Chinese propaganda, and since August 29th, when the Indian Army caught the Chinese off guard, the propaganda tap has been opened to full flow. But if there was any doubt about the Indian Army at high altitudes, pictures speak louder than tweets. Bureau Report, India Today.
General Dua, I want to come to you on this aspect. You know, the loudspeakers, but also the other, constant propaganda and information warfare that's being played by China. One would think that the public would need some reassurance. I know for a fact as a journalist that the public has absolute faith in the armed forces and the leadership as far as China is concerned and doesn't need any reassurance. But I still want to ask you, because there is a great deal of public curiosity of what it's like out there at those heights, hostile terrain, just meters away from the enemy, and these mind games are being played. What's it like for Indian troops and commanders there, and how do they react, sir?
Like your report just brought out, these are high altitude and super high altitude areas. Anything above 9,000 feet is high altitude, and then we have different grades from 12,000, 15,000 feet and upwards.
Yes, sir.
Indian Army, nowhere in the world are so many troops deployed in such high altitude and super high altitude areas, including, if you also take Siachen Glacier, that's too high. These are the places where mountaineering expeditions move with oxygen cylinders, whereas our troops move with guns, ammunitions, and other weapons. My own battalion did that attack at 21,000 plus feet at Bana Top.
Yes.
But 29,000 feet is Everest. So, the kind of experience that Indian Army has had, I wish we didn't have to do this, but
yes,
the kind of experience Indian Army has had in high altitude, while your report said up to eastern Ladakh, look at entire Sikkim is super high altitude, Arunachal, we have such experience, such combat seasoned soldiers over the last few decades, for all the wrong reasons, albeit. But the fact is, today, Indian Army soldier is combat experience in this terrain like no other. We have the bravery of Indian soldier is known all over the world.
Yes.
And in the Western World War II, there are memorials strewn around European cities and towns. So we know that.
Correct.
My point is, with our experience of high altitude areas, with our dedication and bravery as is known, whether it's Kashmir or Kargil or anything else, I don't think these tricks, these very old enablers are going to help to lower the morale is in any case out of question.
Okay, it's out of question. Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. So just one last sentence.
Yes, please.
However, I would, like I said earlier, there are other things. We are talking about a particular aspect today. We must never underestimate our adversary.
Absolutely.
And let's not get carried away by one thing. We should understand that they are up to many more tricks.
Very true.
But this one is surely something that's not going to make a dent at all.
Many more tricks is the crucial point, Colonel Dini. You may have not experienced loudspeakers when you were commanding your unit at Pangong, but I'm sure you've experienced many other provocations, maybe of an even more direct kind. So that is the question that the public is curious about as well, that how do troops, in the face of constant provocations, little pinpricks, mind games, psychological operations in the battlefield, how do Indian troops acquit themselves, and how do they resist and tolerate, handle it and function in that area?
See, Shiv, as far as Indian troops are concerned, they behave exactly the way they are treated.
Yeah.
For example, if they're treated with respect, you showed the Bhangra dance, which when we had that joint exercise. So we go all out to show respect to our adversary there.
Yes.
But in case if they do not show respect, then it is treated in the same manner. And today, to a great extent, this particular conflict, I strongly believe, is because of this. Giving it back in the same language which the Chinese understand is one of the main reasons why this has happened. There are a plethora of strategic reasons which people can attribute, but I of the firm believe that because there was a lot of conflict happening at that place, and that is the way the Indian Army treats and operates there. So if there is a scuffle, it is given back in kind. If there is a handshake, it is given back in kind. If there is mind game, it is done there also. Like we don't play the loudspeakers and all, but that there are ways and means of
we have our methods.
Showing our intention and of course showing our the moral ascendancy, how we can attend. That is done on ground also. It is the body language and the way we conduct ourselves. Those kind of things happen on ground. So it is parity as far as all actions are concerned, and there is nothing which should be of concern of the citizens, because that is how it is happening throughout.
Yes.
It is not happening right now. It has been throughout like that.
For China watchers like you, Dr. Cholia, are there any lessons or big takeaways from this current standoff in the manner in which they've mounted this mind game campaign? You know, Global Times has become a prominent player, but there are several others, as General Dua and Colonel Dinny pointed out. And India has its own, ways of, poking right back. They may not be very visible to us because the Indian Army keeps it subtle, doesn't broadcast them all over the place. But what would be the big takeaways for someone like you?
Well, Shiv, the point is that, we now have regained the balance of initiative, I call it. There is a balance of power, and that's a larger issue, but balance of initiative on the ground at these high altitudes, we have regained it. And so I think they are on the defensive in many ways. They cannot mount more, incursions like they did in April and May.
Yeah.
And they know now that, they are facing a very formidable Indian Army, and keep aside all the bluster. The reality is they have military strategies and also espionage to realize how serious we are this time. So
Correct.
They may play Bhangra, but we lost 20 soldiers. They actually lost more, but they will not admit it because of the type of regime that is closed authoritarian dictatorship. So we are serious. And I will say that, add to the respected panelists who are from the military, that, when the blood of our soldiers has been spilled in Galwan, we are not going to take this lying down until we restore status quo ante. I think that is the larger point we're making. And I think the Chinese have always been warned by Narendra Modi, we should respect each other's sensitivities.
Absolutely.
We are very blunt about it. And on the matter of, blood of our soldiers, there's going to be no compromise. I think that's a big lesson for the Chinese, because they thought India is a pushover, we have an asymmetry of
big
power,
miscalculation.
advantage, and all that. But we have neutralized that through our bravery and through our resolve. So I think the Chinese are learning a big lesson in how not to throw their weight around, how not to be pushy with a very determined adversary, and rather respect India because we are strong. So I think we have earned our respect this time with the Chinese, and they are therefore flabbergasted, flummoxed, and therefore resorting to these, ridiculous
And these
tactics.
mind games, mind you, are happening at a time when the focus is on conflict prevention. Remember, India has never saber-rattled. India has never said, come on, bring it on, let's fight. India has always said, we will defend no matter what, at any cost, our sovereignty, but we are committed to peace, because that's the kind of country that India is. It does not saber-rattle in public. On the ground, like Colonel Dinny said, like General Dua said, if there's a handshake, there is a handshake. If there is a scuffle, there will be a scuffle. It's not like the Indian Army is sitting there to take any nonsense from the other side. That is a very, very clear view of what things are actually like on the ground. Gentlemen, stay with me. We also want to give our viewers a sense of what's happening on the ground. You've heard the veterans, you've heard the experts. Let's take you to Ladakh now here on Newstrack to show you how the Indian forces are preparing for the long haul in eastern Ladakh. As war clouds loom and a winter of discontent awaits, the army and the interdependent border police are getting battle ready. We hope that there is no war, but battle readiness is an imperative. Nobody has a choice. Take a look at this exclusive ground report from eastern Ladakh. Winter is coming, and there's a storm brewing on the mountains of eastern Ladakh. With sub-zero temperatures and extremely high altitudes, surviving in these conditions is not for the faint-hearted. But with tensions with China on the brink and war clouds looming, this winter, it's not just the Indian Army, but also the Indo-Tibetan Border Police that's preparing for the long haul. With China building up its insulated huts, the ITBP-2 is well prepared. So in case you're wondering where they'll stay, this is it. But this is no usual tent.
What we are seeing here is an Arctic tent meant for heights beyond 15,000 feet. And even if temperatures dip to minus 50 degrees, troops can survive the winter. We can see this tent here. It can accommodate 8 to 10 troops. Here is a Bukhari. This can keep troops warm in addition to the layering. Water is put in here to make sure that there is enough oxygen level. This is a chimney that ensures that the smoke goes out.
But surely that won't be enough. The soldiers need multiple layers of clothing, with temperatures in eastern Ladakh usually dropping to minus 40 degrees. The ITBP Jawans will need everything from woolen socks to snow boots.
Another important thing is that warm water can be stored and it can be sipped from this sort of a straw that this rucksack has. This is what an Indian soldier deployed in eastern Ladakh in this treacherous terrain will look like. This is the equipment that has been provided. This special winter clothing and gear has been provided to each and every soldier.
With the Indian forces building big to counter and match the Chinese deployments, it's even more important that there's no shortage of mountain gear. And the ITBP is ready for that as well.
This is a very crucial piece of equipment that can pull a weight of 250 to 260 kgs. That means with this, at least 4 or 5 soldiers get a push to go up those heights. All this equipment that we can see here is extremely important for rock climbing.
The summer this year saw violent clashes, bullets fired for the first time in nearly 5 decades in Ladakh. And with no end to the India-China stalemate, the winter too will be tough.
There is no shortage of high-altitude equipment for the Indian forces, and along with the Indian Army, the ITBP that is also deployed in friction points is ensuring that there is enough supply of all material, be it tents or winter clothing required to survive the harsh winter in these areas. With camera person Satya, Abhishek Bhalla in Ladakh for India Today.
And here on India Today's coverage, we're always very privileged to have the voices of our veterans, people like General Satish Dua, Colonel Dini, and also experts like Dr. Sriram Cholia, who joined us on today's show. Expect to see much more of them in the days and weeks ahead as we stay with Ladakh as the single biggest story in this country right now. This is about India's sovereignty and our national security. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on this edition of Newstrack. India has also, meanwhile, speeded up the acquisition of war machines to take on China. Many new systems have made their debut in Ladakh during the current standoff. One of the very latest happens to be a fully Indian system. Remember, India is one of the biggest importers of military hardware, but this one, a wheeled combat vehicle, is fully Indian. The engine, every part of it is made and designed by Indians right here in India. Gaurav Sawant with this exclusive in Ladakh.
The first glimpse of the armoured personal carrier for infantry troops at the Leh airfield. Conceptualized by the Defence Research and Development Organization, the wheeled armoured amphibious platform is a multi-purpose troop carrier for reconnaissance and assault operations. The DRDO designed armoured personal carrier was airlifted to Leh for high-altitude winter trials. Now, this vehicle will undergo very extensive trials, not just here in Leh at an altitude of 11,500 feet, but also at Depsang in DBO at much higher altitudes in extreme cold climate to see how the engine and systems on board perform. Though the Army has been operating the tracked version of the armoured personal carrier for decades, and it is even manufactured in India, the wheeled version comes with multiple advantages, especially in this high-altitude terrain. The obvious difference between the wheeled vehicles and the tracked vehicles is that unlike the metal tracks on tanks, wheeled vehicles have multi-axle wheels, enabling them more agility and multi-terrain mobility.
In fact, this is one area which is very good for Armour Go, and it permits the armoured personal carriers. We have a choice of a tracked or the wheeled. In fact, here what matters is the speed. And this area is actually very suitable for wheeled personal carrier and is also suitable for the light tanks. And the existing tanks that we've got are even more powerful in this scenario. So I think we got to make best use of what we have. And I think the wheeled personal carrier will achieve an excellent advantage in this area.
The wheeled version is lighter and can be airlifted on board the C-17 Globemaster and underslung Chinook helicopters. The wheeled versions can move faster and can effectively be deployed both for reconnaissance operations and for quick redeployment of frontline fighting soldiers.
More importantly, in India, with the DRDO and Tata's coming together, Kessler or WAB, whatever you name it now, is under trials, and it has gone through in the area of Sikkim earlier, Ahmednagar firing ranges. It is being now under trial in Ladakh, and I'm quite sure it's a very potent platform because it has got multiple options of turret replacements and 8x8 vehicle, all-terrain capable, and it will be a very important vehicle in the used by the military. And it can be used by the infantry for carriage of troops. Section +2 can go inside that vehicle.
The new armor fighting vehicle can carry up to 12 soldiers, including the driver, and the aim of its deployment would be to ensure high mobility, firepower, and protection for troops inside the vehicle. The vehicle comes with anti-tank guided missiles and 30mm cannon. These vehicles can extensively be deployed in Chumar and Demchok in the south, in the Pangong Tso Lake area, the amphibious, and also on the other side in Depsang and DBO, where they'll play a very critical role, not only moving men from one place to another, but also, if required, for offensive operations and occupation of vital points and vital assets. With cameraman Kripal Singh in Ladakh, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.